In this video, we're going to talk about making a grid for a 16 by 20 drawing on an 18 by 24 piece of paper. Your original photo is going to be on an 8 by 10 grid with 1-inch squares, and with this drawing, we're going to double that in size. It's still going to be an 8 by 10 grid, but the squares are going to be 2 inches instead of 1. So let's say your paper is 18 by 24, which it most likely will be for this class, except for the white charcoal paper, that one's a little bit bigger. On the long side, we have 4 extra inches, and on the short side, we have 2 extra. We could just go over to the paper cutter and chop off the extra, but that's not the best idea. The first part of any piece of paper that's going to get damaged is going to be the corners, so making a border is a much better way of solving this problem. This makes sure that if any damage happens to the paper, it's not going to have any impact on the drawing itself. So with our extra 4 inches, we're going to divide them in half, putting 2 on one end and 2 on the other. And we'll do the same thing with the extra 2 inches on the other side. We'll divide that in half and put 1 on one side and 1 on the other. So your border should look something like this. Now we have to put 2-inch squares in the center. So here's our 18 by 24 piece of paper. Let's start by making our border. We're measuring 2 inches from this side and 2 inches on the other side. Now you need to pick another random spot on the paper and do it again. You always want to measure twice so that you make sure you're making a straight line. Do the same thing going the other direction, only this time you're going to do 1 inch and then 1 inch, measuring twice so that your lines end up 1 inch away from the edge of the paper the whole way across. Now from the border, you're going to measure every 2 inches on the bottom and every 2 inches on the top. Connect the lines going up and down, but make sure you're doing it really lightly because you're eventually going to erase these lines, and if they're too dark, they'll be too tough to get rid of. Measure every 2 inches starting at your 1-inch border on one side and then the other, and connect your lines again. Make sure your lines are light so that you can erase them. I've made them much darker than they should be for the purpose of this video, so definitely don't make them as dark as I'm doing right now. Once you have your resource image, you can go ahead and start numbering your squares based on the orientation. Right now, my resource image is landscape format, which means it's wider than it is tall. So I'll number 1 through 8 on the left side and 1 through 10 across the top. I'll do the same thing on the resource image. If your resource image is portrait format, meaning it's taller than it is wide, you'll number 1 through 10 down the left side and 1 through 8 across the top. Now you're ready to start drawing using the grid as your guide. Start with an outline and fill in the values or colors once you have your sketch done and it's accurate. I also suggest making a little window using Post-its so that you can focus on one square at a time and really work on abstracting your image and making sure you're using the space appropriately. Make sure to take your time and let me know if you have any questions at all during the grid drawing process.